Oftentimes, Andy, honestly, most people of color feel as though we are unicorns. I have most of the time worked at organizations and companies where I have been the only one or one of a handful at larger organizations and companies and agencies. Um, and I've learned to play the game. We all do. That's just how we as professionals and people of color, we learn how to code switch. And code switch is not just in terms of linguistics, it's in terms of how we act, what we say, how we walk. Um, Most of the time, we spend our energy not just doing our jobs, but ensuring that our demeanor is in such a way that our colleagues feel comfortable with our presence. That is real talk. First of all, let me just say, I have to really address it because, again, this is the first time I've really spoken in a public forum about uh, any of the events that have taken place over the course of the past month. I know for myself, for my family, it has been one of the most traumatic, difficult, emotional, spiritual, and mental times that I can ever recall. Um, to say that I'm outraged by the acts of racism, brutality, injustice that we've all witnessed in the past month and a half would be a gross understatement. Um, it has been extremely difficult to endure from an emotional perspective, especially. And it really started with the video of the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, which stayed with me for several weeks, manifested itself then to the video of Amy Cooper in Central Park and the weaponizing of female white privilege. And finally, the slow, agonizing 8 minutes and 46 seconds worth of murder in the streets of George Floyd at the hands of the police who are supposed to serve and protect. Just the emotional toll of seeing these injustices is something any person of color can tell you just eats away at your soul. And enough is enough.
Well, which brings me to the current state of things. Are you encouraged by the conversation, the scope of the demonstrations around the country, around the world, conversations with your colleagues, commitments by big corporations? Are you encouraged or are you skeptical? What are your thoughts about, this is a moment in time where things could change or may not change? What do you think?
I am hopeful because I have no choice but to be. As a person of color, as a Black man, we are resilient and we are strong and we have dealt with so much adversity in our professional and personal lives. And we've largely remained silent, probably to our detriment and to the detriment of the advertising ecosystem and to all corporations. And I think the time now for silence is over. I am hopeful. This time it feels different. And the fact that I have to even say this time, that mere fact is not lost on me. It's a travesty. But this time it does feel different. It feels as though there is a movement amongst us. And I really am hopeful that these same corporations who have stepped up and made proclamations about how much money they're giving back to their communities uh, will also be reflective and look at themselves and their own organizations to see the changes that need to be made. I do think that both individually and collectively, we need to address how we can foster an actively anti-racist culture within corporate culture. Um, they say the more enlightened that you are, the more we realize what we don't know. And I think collectively, we need to stand together to be committed to understanding how we can be better change agents and allies in this fight for equality. And also acknowledge that, we're never really going to be perfect, but we can't stop striving towards being better. There needs to be several things that I think need to take place specifically across all organizations. Blacks and people of color should be represented at all executive levels within a corporate structure, including the C-suite, including board of directors and other executive decision-making positions. Those need to extend beyond the traditional multicultural and diversity roles that, while they're necessary for sure, they've also been a detriment of sorts in terms of pigeonholing us and stifling the ability to really significantly have a seat at the table and contribute at a macro level. I think corporations and brands have to over-index in the engagement of Black people and minority suppliers throughout the entire supplier ecosystem. And then in general, all corporations, all companies need to really embrace Black talent and shed the echo chamber of like-mindedness and like-minded looking professionals. Pay young Black talent and people of color a fair compensation and embrace them and bring them into the fold. Give them opportunities to grow, to learn. It's not enough to just have pipeline. Once you have pipeline, great. What are you doing to help groom them and grow them to the mid-level? Once they get to the mid-level, how are you grooming them and growing them and preparing them to be at the C-suite? These are the things that I think have been missing for far too long in corporate culture. And while I am hopeful and pleased to see the conversation happening, it saddens me, it enrages me that it took the death, the killing of a Black man in the streets for this to happen. But if there is a silver lining to be made, let's take advantage of this opportunity now.